this week there were two massive victories for Donald Trump, which makes sense. I mean, he handpicked like three of them. But the Supreme Court first, most importantly, I guess, ruled that he can still be on the ballot in Colorado, and then also in, I don't know if folks know, Maine and more recently Illinois voted that not voted, the Supreme Court ruled him off the ballot under the 14th Amendment and the insurrection clause. But the Supreme Court said, nope, they didn't really rule on whether it was insurrection, but they were just like, it's like, it's not fair. It's not fair because we don't believe in states' rights in this case. But like every other case, we super believe in states' rights, but not in this case. And yeah, they basically handed it to him. And not only that, I think more dangerously, and I think this is where the liberal judges dissented maybe, was that they made it more difficult to even implement the 14th Amendment in the future should there be, I don't know, another attempt to overturn a democratic election. But what do you make of that?
Yeah, that second point is really crucial. I think the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment is now a dead letter. Like the courts have basically decided this does not apply. And one can understand this kind of political logic of that. Like I do actually, I was never a fan of these legal strategies. Like I don't think you can say catch, Trump and the 70 million people who voted for him on a technicality and say, oh, actually, Mr. Trump, you didn't fill out the paperwork. It's a political. I always thought that this is a political problem and has to be solved by organizing against it. But having said that, like it is pretty clear. I mean, the clear letter of the 14th Amendment would indicate that, if you're an insurrectionist, you shouldn't be able to run for office. The courts have, in their wisdom, decided not to. I think, the way forward for me is one thing, which is I really hope this radicalizes liberals on the issue of the courts, and then to realize, like we cannot actually, lawyer our way into a better world, and that the actual courts themselves, especially at the level of the Supreme Court, this is actually the enemy, and we actually have to like kind of not like use that as our default, or this is going to be our path to achieving anything. We actually have to like radically limit the powers of the court, and radically change the courts by doing all the stuff that Joe Biden refuses to do, which is like expand the courts. Okay. So I mean, to me, that's the kind of big takeaway. I mean, the other, but you're exactly right that if the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment is a dead letter, which I now believe it is, I do think that the court has itself opened the path for many more January 7. Like I think that future Republicans will try this stratagem again in the confidence that this will not cost them anything. And I think that's a very dire thing. I think, I'm not a big, America's, rapidly on the path to a second civil war. But on the other hand, there are a lot of bad signs. And I think that this is it's one step further towards like a really apocalyptic ending to all this.
Right.
So yeah.
I think you make a really good point, but I'm also like, what does that mean for the Constitution more broadly? What does that mean for how this was actually put in the Constitution, which was, again, trying to prevent, this is the legacy of the Civil War, and trying to prevent insurrectionists from, seceding and going against the Union. And it is the fact that we have Trump is evidence that we did not go hard enough against Confederates following the Civil War. And that he is the ugly like mushroom that's grown on this like open wound or moldy gym sock of American racism and like, whatever oligarchy or plutocracy. It's just like but you're right that that's a movement. That's a politics that you have to beat in culturally. You have to beat electorally. You have to beat in education in all kinds of ways. And so while I agree and disagree with you, I think they're also pussies is what I want to say.
Well, no, they are. But I think that I never had faith that when it came down to it, John Roberts and Clarence Thomas, that these guys were going to save us, right? I did not understand that's the strategy you're going with, where it's like, I think, like politics, as you say, is like on all fronts, right? Like it's on the front of like voting, it's on the front of education, it's on the front of the workplace, and it's on the front of the law. But on the legal realm, like I actually think that you actually have to defeat the Supreme Court first before you actually get the court decisions that actually protect democracy. The courts have been against American democracy, not just in this case, but like for the last 3 decades, right? They've been rolling back the civil rights laws for decades. So why would you expect that this court is going to be like, is going to have your back? I never understood that legal strategy at all.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're like a billionaire and can take them fly fishing or get them like a really cool 18-wheeler, 16-wheeler. I forgot how many wheels they have. But
no, the courts are not our friend. I mean, that's my big takeaway. The courts are not our friend. And I think the more people realize that the courts are actually like, the enemy and have to be fought as such, the better off we are.
And further evidence of that is they also this week basically decided they're going to hear this presidential immunity case, which they likely will rule that Trump doesn't have presidential immunity from all of these cases. But in doing so, they've effectively punted the January 6th, whether or not there was an insurrection trial, punted it until August, meaning it won't be wrapped by Election Day, meaning there could be another coup before we've determined whether the first one was a coup. He might be lapping his coup. Like this might be like
honestly, because of the previous decision we discussed, like if I were Trump, like why not do another coup? Like right now he might not have to do a coup because I mean Biden is doing so badly. But let's say by some miracle we end up with the same result as 2020. Biden winning both the popular vote and the electoral college. In that situation, like if I were Trump, I would absolutely do another coup because why not? You've already shown.
Even if he wins,
exactly.
Even if he wins, just break out the dude with the QAnon.
No, I mean, like, why not? Like, and it's not just this court decision. I mean, the fact that like the Merrick Garland took such a long time to get to that decision.
Yes.
I just think like everything I've seen, and okay, this gets to like a serious point. Among what I would call the resistance liberal types, there's a real faith in law enforcement and in the courts. And this has been their strategy. And these tend to be like, like well-educated, well-to-do liberals. And I just don't see like everything I've seen in the last 10 years or more is that these institutions cannot be relied on. This is not going to be this shouldn't be like where your energy goes to.
Yes, and Trump is proof of that. I mean, remember when Robert Mueller, former FBI director, was going to save us? That was fun.
But not just Mueller, Comey, this guy that did the report on Biden. Like, okay, first of all these guys are Republicans, right? Like they might not be they never be Trumpist Republicans, but they're all Republicans. And like the idea that like there's this liberal fantasy that like it's like watching too much Law and Order. They watch Law and Order and they think like these prosecutors they're the these handsome well-groomed guys who are gonna just throw the book at Trump, and that's just not gonna happen. I mean, it's just like more likely they're gonna try to screw Biden because they're Republicans. So this is like the institutions that were all created by people like J. Edgar Hoover. Like why don't Anyways, don't get me started.
And they'll be fine either way. No, 100%. And then, like to say nothing of finance and, where they will ultimately throw down, which is with fascism versus anything that would upset their bottom line. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.